SGD Careers. We are going to be having another 15-minute bite-sized session where we're going to be learning all about pensions with the awesome Ruth, who is a financial advisor, who's a familiar face, no doubt, to many of you who have been a part of VetU or have been on any of our events up until now. And we love doing these on a Friday. Maybe it's your lunchtime, maybe you're catching up later, just to really get those snippets of information that you can learn something in this little window that we've got, 15 minutes. So like you say, today, pensions is our hot topic. We've already gone through a little bit on investments. We've talked about income protection. We will cover whatever works for you. So please do use this time to your advantage. So Ruth, I think probably the best place for us to start, although I know we've all got maybe an idea around it, but it's for us just to define like what actually is a pension at its bare bones.
So keeping it simple, a pension is basically like a long-term savings plan. So for this one, you're saving for your future for when you want to retire. So it will give you a pot of money when you reach a certain age. So for majority of us who might be on the call, it might be 58, 59 at the earliest.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's saving for later life.
So like you say, a longer term investment, essentially, we're putting money there and we can't access that particularly very easily, can we, once it's in a pension?
You can't access it at all until you're usually, it depends on your date of birth, but usually around 58 or 59. So any money that you do put in, you have to lock away until that time. Unless you're critically ill, in which case then you might be able to access it earlier. But on the whole, 58 or 59.
Yeah, so it's really us just thinking in the way that Ebony from the VetU team calls it, the Future Fun Fund. I always love it looking at it that way as well. And I guess one of the questions, the FFF. One of the things that comes up a lot for us, Ruth, is people saying, how do I know if I've got a good pension? How do I know what defines a pension that's going to serve me well?
Okay, so how do I know if I've got a good pension? So you need to kind of have a look into it and just find out, is it a company sponsored scheme? Is it a personal scheme that you've kind of set up yourself? Because they're very different.
Yeah.
Company pension schemes are usually like employer sponsored schemes. They're set up by your employer because it was mandatory from 2012 that they had to come in place. But as you can imagine, sometimes the funds with them might, the way that it's invested you don't have as many choices as what you might have if you have a personal pension. And don't forget to call me out, Katie, if I use any jargon. But yeah, so I would be looking at, so when I get a pension, I have a look at what are your charges? So how much are you charged to have that pension? It's usually called an AMC, which is an annual management charge. What's the performance of the fund? How much are you getting from it? And then what type of funds and how many do you have? So very quickly, I look at a pension as like, think of it as like the Premiership League. Now, I don't follow football, but I understand how it works. That is your portfolio, or your Premiership League is where your pension is. Within your league, you have a number of teams. And within your teams, you have a number of players. So that's what goes into your pension. Now, what you want is the right type of teams and the right type of players that go into it. So yeah, do you have a personal scheme? Do you have an employer-sponsored scheme? And then how much is in there? That's the other thing. How much is it getting you?
Yeah. And I guess if people wanted to find this information out, Ruth, they think, oh my goodness, maybe I have a pension to do with work. It is a work scheme. How were they able to find out more information about that?
So I would have a look at, see if you have any paperwork, because legally they have to enroll you. So you should have been sent something.
Yeah.
If you're not sure, then quite simply, I would write down the name of your employers that you've worked for, whenever that may be, since 2012, and just say, right, I worked here then, I worked there then, and you can contact them and ask. Or there is actually a government website that you can go on, type in your employer's name, and then poof, it should pop up with the pension scheme that they're enrolled in, and then you can contact them directly if you wanted.
Yeah. Oh, such a good insight. We'll see if we can get that link in the comments afterwards for anyone that's rewatching this back as well. And I guess like you say, if you can go and find the information, then you've always got the ability to chat with Ruth, for example, or another financial advisor that's got the information then in front of them. Because when you're explaining like these different components to it and all these things, it's useful for us to know some bits about it. But actually, if we want to know it intricately, sometimes getting a second pair of eyes that studied this stuff can be helpful to us. And I guess you touched a little bit on there, Ruth, about personal pensions as well. And so we know we can have workplace pensions, we can have our personal pensions that we've gone and set up. So how would someone go about setting up a personal pension, whether they just want their own personal pension, or whether it's that they're a freelancer or they've got their own business? Like, where do you start with that?
I would honestly say, chat it through with a financial professional, whether it's me or it's someone else. Usually the first, obviously, introductory calls are completely complimentary.
Yeah.
Just talk through your circumstances and find out if it's right for you. Because quite often, for me, it's separating fact from fiction, like how, I've got to put in this percentage of my salary. And it's like, why it's a good guide. It all depends on your personal circumstances. So I would definitely have a look and speak to someone to find out, okay, have you got enough? You might have a fantastic pension, in which case I've turned around to a couple of people and said, you're actually doing really well. Keep it where it is. But if you want a champagne lifestyle, or you want to be able to retire at a certain age, to stop working, say as early as possible, then you need to start thinking about it now.
Yeah. We say this is one of the reasons why we're also passionate about VetU, educating people around this, because I wish someone had told me when I was 23 the power of compound interest, which we can go into on another day, of just realizing that the interest that something gets then gets interest on it. And it just snowballs over the years. And the sooner we can start, the better. Like we always say, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the second best time is today. So if you're listening to this and you've not taken action, it's not too late, is it?
It's never too late, honestly. No. The worst thing you can do is leave it, or leave your head buried in the sand. Like I had someone who was absolutely devastated. It was like, oh my gosh, so anxious. I don't know where to start if I've got enough. And I seem to get another pension every single week that they come through and say, oh, found this, oh, found that. And then we look at obviously combining it to make sure that he knows exactly how much is in there.
Yeah. Amazing. And just to signpost anyone, we've done a few longer sessions on pensions, and particularly personal pensions, with Ruth and with Raindrop, who are a flexible online pension company. So you can catch up on those on the VetU website. We can send you the links to those. Just drop us a message. We'll get those across to you if you do want to dive into this a bit further. And one interesting question we'd actually had in, Ruth, was just if you could talk us through how the state pension works. I know you have to get a certain number of national insurance stamps. Like how does that all work essentially?
Yeah, so if you're employed or self-employed, you'll be paying national insurance contributions. Now, what that entitles you to, if you collect a certain amount, is you get a state pension, which is usually operates about 10 years after a personal pension. So say you can retire at 58, for example, then you'll be able to access your state pension at 68.
Yeah.
Now, the minimum amount on the new state pension, the minimum amount of contributions that you need to get anything is 10 years. Yeah. And then you need like a full 35 years of contributions to get the full state pension. Yeah. Now, you can also type in just on Google or your search engine, find my state pension, and find out how many years contributions you've got. But yeah, that's what it does. And it should get you just over £9,000 a year with, if you have the full state pension. Now, it's not to be sniffed at, because I'm not going to lie, I'd like an extra £9,000 in my bank account.
Oh, yeah.
If you've worked for it and it's there, then yeah, it's something to make sure you're kept aware of. Because certain years, I get very passionate about pensions, Katie,
I know you do.
Certain years you might have only missed out on collecting a year's contribution by a couple of pounds. Now you have the option to actually pay that couple of pounds to get an extra year to make up the year. So it's knowledge is power. Find out. I did it. I logged on and I had 2 years where I just needed a little bit of a top up. And so I did it.
Yeah. And I know you showed me how to do that, Ruth, and I went
Oh
on and
yeah, I
had a look
forgot.
through and
Yeah.
was like, oh, this is really interesting, really accessible. So again, we'll pop those links there because, like you say, by hitting that national insurance contribution and getting those stamps, we're making ourselves eligible to get the pension, essentially, aren't we? It's not that we're putting money into a pot with the government, with the state pension. It is your eligibility to be able to get that as a benefit, which is really
100%.
interesting to me.
Yeah, it really
Yeah.
is. And it's something that, you pay for it. And everyone goes, national insurance, you look at your wage slip and you're like, what is this? So yeah, that's what it does. It helps entitle you to a state pension. But quite often, just over £9,000, is that enough to live off? So you need to have a look at how much of a lifestyle you want to have in retirement. And then we need to, having a financial advisor or someone to talk to about it will help you work back to how much you need to save for your needs and your circumstances.
Yeah. And we love that individual approach as well, because it's so easy to have like blanket rules that we'll read online. Oh my goodness, you should be putting this percentage in and you must do this. And actually, we know, like our own patients, that we're all individual. And if we followed that rule for some people, that's not going to be enough for them because they've got more free cash there. For other people, that might cripple them. And actually, if they have a conversation with you, realize that, let me take my head out of the sand and maybe I can put in slightly less than this blanket recommendation, but it's still going to give me something while still meaning that I'm in a comfortable position day to day. And that's, again, testament to working with an advisor. So one of the other questions, Ruth, that we've had come through is just touching on what you did say about one of your clients as well. There is, if you've been in loads of different roles over the years, you've been in a role since you graduated, you've done a couple of locum shifts, you've done a different role for a while, and you're like, I know I must have a pension because I worked there since 2012, but I don't know anything about it. How can you find those once you've left?
So once you've left, you can either, search through the emails. The easiest path is to find out if you have a contact at that company, and then just email like the HR, human resource department, and just say, look, who's the pension with? So the next best thing is is to then contact the pension provider themselves if you haven't got the information. And all you will need is usually full name, national insurance number, and date of birth, and the address you were registered at when you set that pension up. But usually they can find it on the others. So and then you can find your details. And then I say, Rome wasn't built in a day. Just start with, say, one a week, of finding one pension a week, and then just write it down just on a piece of paper. So I worked at X, Y, and Z. And then start the process. And you can, if you can't find it one way, there's so many other ways you can. You could just use the government link, find pension details, which you'll provide. I'll give it to you as well. And then you'll be able to find it directly there because you've saved for it. So make sure that you have that money and that you have it as part of your, your retirement planning pot.
And like you said, there are plenty of tools out there. There are people to help you. There's information, like it might seem a bit overwhelming, but actually, just like you said, breaking it down step by step means
sometimes I'll go online, Katie. I'll go and sit. If people go, I don't know, or they do get really overwhelmed, jump on a call. We'll go through it together. I'll share my screen. We'll type it in and we'll see if we can find it. There's so many different options. You just have to want to do it and take that first step. And your future fund may be waiting.
And this is just a quick extra question just to pop in there. I know we're running a little short on time, but is it worth putting all of those pensions in one pot? Or is that, again, very individual?
I think you should combine your pensions personally. Obviously, I need to have a look at what's where, but I think it is well worth combining them because then you've got them all in one place. Because like you've said, so many people lose. Oh gosh, I don't know where I worked at like 3 years ago. Sometimes I forget what I've had for breakfast, let alone where I worked 4 or 5 years ago. But if you've already put it into a pot, you know how much you've got, you know it's all there and it's all saved. So it just makes it easier. And there's so many companies like I Can Help You, Raindrop can help you. There's lots of people that can help you do that if you can't do it yourself.
And I think, like we've said on a few of the calls before, it's been interesting that actually working with someone like yourself, Ruth, can help you look at like the benefits of each of those and say which is going to be the one that it's worth us putting them all into, which one do we go forward with? Because otherwise you might end up with, even if the small management charges like we were talking about on all of them individually. So you can help somebody get that skyline view of all those different pension pots and be like, right, okay, what's our plan? What are your options? Because you never tell people what to do. You just do the same as us. Like, here are the things that you can do with that educated eye. And I think we've touched a little bit on the next question already, again, with it being quite individualized. Someone's asked, how much should I put in each month? And I think really briefly, because we've kind of touched on this one.
Yeah, so financial questionnaire, got to figure out how much you've got disposable income, because someone might be going out so often, you know, and having lots more spends. You don't know. It's all individual to the person. So I look at how much disposable income, so how much you're left with per month, and then we work out how much is affordable to kind of put towards your future fund, and how much might you want in the short to medium term, because you've got to separate it. Because remember, you are saving for something that you cannot access until you're at least age of 58. So you need to make sure that you're able to leave it, and also make sure it's sustainable, because you don't want to keep swapping and changing. And so have a minimum amount that you know that it doesn't matter what happens or how much of a good month you have, you can always afford to put that certain amount into a pension. I think that's the starting point.
Amazing. And I know we touch on in the longer webinars and things, the tax advantages of saving into pensions, and that being such a brilliant part of them, which I'll signpost so you can go and rewatch those and just see what an advantage that has at various tax rates and things like that too. And I think the final question, just to wrap up with, Ruth, and people that have been listening to this all the way through have probably seen this golden thread of how useful it is having an advisor on board. But how does working with an advisor on pensions work, and what are the advantages to that?
So working with someone like myself, for instance, with their pensions, we will come and have an initial chat. You can help me to, tell me roughly how many you think you've got, where they are. You might need help with that. So like I've said, we can jump on a call. It's the benefit of having someone who knows what they're talking about, who won't make you feel silly or like you haven't got enough knowledge, because if you haven't been told, how are you meant to know? So it's having someone that also has your back, that can help give you some good advice about exactly what to do with it, how much you should be saving based on how much you want to live off in retirement. So there's so many benefits, because I know it can be overwhelming, but just having someone to talk to, like anything in life, can be such a relief and help.
And just taking the pressure off ourselves to know the answers. Like you said, actually, you have trained in this, Ruth. We have trained in the veterinary profession. You wouldn't beat yourself up because you don't know the answers about your cat. You would reach out, you would speak to the vet, you would speak to somebody that has trained in those things. And actually, it's us giving ourselves permission to say, it's good for me to educate myself on the day-to-day runnings of my finances, but when there is like a big decision coming up, let me just stand on the shoulders of those giants that do this day in, day out. And we're really pleased that as a financial advisor, Ruth, you've helped hundreds now of people in this profession, and you always gift those initial chats are always complimentary. They are so valuable. Like, it's not that you're going to turn up with Ruth on a call and she's going to try and hard sell you something. She's literally going to sit with you
I'd
and be
mortified if anyone thought that.
And just 100% she doesn't. Like, we've had such amazing feedback, and this is just us gifting you guys the opportunity to say, look, there is an amazing financial advisor here that wants to help you with this stuff, that is keen to help give you well-timed, good financial advice and support, help you take your head out of the sand. Because this morning I was with a good friend of mine asking her, like, what would your questions around pensions be? And she was like, to be honest, my biggest one would be, what would happen if I didn't take my head out of the sand? And I think that's probably a really good one for us to finish up on there, Ruth.
Oh my gosh, it's not nice, but I've come across people who are at retirement and they haven't saved a thing. And they say to me, what can I have? What can I do? And I'm like, I don't know what to suggest, because if they haven't got anything, then they can't stop working, because they need to pay their bills. So use the power of compound interest that works for you and start as soon as you can, because it makes a huge difference. And I've got all of the kind of literature to back it up to show you how it helps.
And we know pensions, we know any investment can go up and down, but looking at the history as well, and knowing that actually we can put it somewhere where there's the potential of that interest and not being affected as much by inflation, sitting in a bank account not doing anything. Let's use that to our advantage and speak to someone that knows their stuff. And actually, sometimes I think one of the big lessons that we've had both from yourself and from other people that we've spoken to from VetU and the community is sometimes it's just starting small, isn't it?
Yeah.
Even if you're putting away the
just
minimum a little bit, then
yeah. Like there's people out there that can do that, like Raindrop. I think the minimum's like £1 or something, you know. There are places, and I've signposted people to the, you know, the best option for them. And don't forget the tax efficiency. If you are paying in yourself, you get the government uplift based on your tax rate. You'll always get the government uplift. So that's an initial basic rate tax. And so you're getting extra money to save to help you live in retirement.
Yeah. And again, if you're doing it as a limited company director, you do have some tax advantages that way as expenses. And I know that's conversations people to maybe have with the accountant as well, if they are freelancers, locum, self-employed, and seeing the most effective way to do that. But there are so many advantages to it. So Ruth, thank you so much. I feel like that's been a real power 20 minutes of us just going through those questions, giving people some real action points and starting points. If you do want to book a call with Ruth, I'll pop her link, her Calendly link in the comments. You can pick a time. There's no charge for those first chats. Just go on, like articulate what it is that you're struggling with and see, like, is it that Ruth can help you move forward with one of those things? Can she signpost you? Can she get you set up with something? Can she just give you that advice where actually, okay, let me help you take the next step? So we'll pop all those links down there. We will be back next Friday. We've had quite a few questions about critical illness cover, actually. So I think that might be a really good topic for us to cover, because we haven't actually done that in a webinar or anything before. So get your questions in about critical illness and we can make sure that we cover that for you at 1 o'clock next Friday. So thank you so much, Ruth, once again, for your time. Any other questions, pop them in the comments below. We will be there for them, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week. Bye.